Well, welcome back to the show. All week long, we've been getting great questions from our viewers on Twitter, on Facebook, and in our inbox. And remember, you can send in your questions at any time. We have some good ones, so let's get right to them. Judge Charbonnet, you up for it?
Yes, ready to go.
All right, well, here's our first question from a viewer who says, what happens if I miss my court date?
Well, it's very simple. If you miss your court date, a warrant is issued for your arrest.
And that's it.
That's it. It's just that simple.
It is just that simple.
I'd add to it, if you're aware you missed your court date, probably it's incumbent on you to contact the court, explain, hopefully you have a good explanation what happened, if your car broke down, if you were sick, hopefully you can get a doctor's note.
Yeah.
And don't have them come looking for you, better to have you go looking
for them. Before we get to our next question, you were in the middle of finishing up an answer about public defenders, and you mentioned you really want to give them some credit because they have a heavy caseload, not a whole lot.
Yeah, they
Not a lot of funding.
No, they don't. From what I understand and from what they tell me, you know, I have my own funding battles I have to fight for municipal court, so I'm not as aware of the details of theirs. But they represent. First of all, we all understand that we have a lot of poor people in this city, unfortunately, and a lot of people who are poor find themselves in the criminal justice system. They cannot afford an attorney. The public defender's office happily represents these individuals. They probably carry 2 to 3 to 4 times more cases than they should per lawyer. There's a standard, and I forget, they've told me the standard, and right now that escapes me, but you know, one public defender in my court could easily be representing 15 individuals in one day. And the other one also. There's 2 assigned, and that's just in my section. Now that does not include that could easily just be the number of people incarcerated that they're just meeting and they're walking in the door. There's other people who have previously been qualified that are walking in court for trial. That then they have to also prepare for trial to represent them and defend them. They do excellent work to say that they have such a heavy caseload. Sometimes I wonder where they get so creative in these arguments, and I mean, I just wonder, I'm like, how do you have time to do this with the caseload you have? But they do a fine job, and I have to give them credit.
Well, that brings us to another question that we have from a viewer, and this viewer says, do I have another option if I don't like my court-appointed attorney?
Probably not, and again, that's probably a question more pointed toward the public defender, the supervisors there. Certainly you could call a supervisor at the public defender's office and say, listen, I don't like this guy or gal, and there may be a reason why. They may assign you a new public defender, but if the case is in Section C, which is my section, and those are the attorneys assigned to that section, generally that's the lawyer that's going to represent you.
That's the lawyer.
You can talk to a supervisor.
Just one footnote. If you can come up with the cash to go out and get your own private lawyer, well then you can say, I've got a new lawyer, I'm paying her my borrowed money, and I'm going to pay her. Then you can always get a private attorney to step in. Then that's only for the lucky few who can afford it.
Right. Speaking of a lot of the cases that you handle, the mentally ill, you see them quite a bit in your courtroom. Can you talk a little bit about those cases and how challenging they are?
You know, Shauna, you said it. Not only are they challenging, but they're disturbing because the mentally ill have nowhere to go. They often find themselves charged with disturbing the peace, obstruction of a public passageway. Sometimes it's public intox if they're drinking or using street drugs on top of the mental illness, trespass. And part of that is because they're often homeless. All right, so we've got a combination. You have a homeless person and a mentally ill individual who is simply looking for somewhere to sleep at night.
It's a challenging problem, and add to that, I understand that, and you brought it up, drug addiction. You see a lot of people that are in front of you, in fact, on a regular basis, that have apparent drug addiction issues.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. That's a big issue, y'all. It's something that we work very hard on getting people help. As opposed to incarcerating you, we want to see if you can't go to a program. We send you to Odyssey House.
So there are programs that are offered in lieu of simply sitting in a jail cell.
On drug addiction issues. But you have to remember, it's like anything else. It's like a diet. You've got to be ready. So if I force you to go and you don't want to go, you're released to show up and you don't show up. And you know, when we talk about funding, these are the things that we really could use, where we had transportation. So I don't run the risk of releasing this woman who's on heroin, who I know if I release her to the street and tell her show up at Grace House tomorrow, she's going to be distracted. She's going to go back to her own neighborhood. She's probably going to get high again, and she's not going to make it to her check-in the next morning. So these are the little connectors to these things that I think would really help us have more success. If she could be picked up from jail, brought to the program, dropped off, made sure she's in. I mean, we have public defenders who actually pick up their clients to bring them to these programs, which at times I think is above and beyond. It's certainly above and beyond.
Right.
But we've had instances where they stop at a red light and the person darts out of the car. So it's kind of getting them there. And y'all, as I said, you know, a person has to be ready. If they're not ready, they're not going to go.
Right.
Until they're tired and they're worn and they say, Judge, all right, I'm ready.
And it is a cycle. It is a serious cycle that it's very hard to stop that cycle, because there just really aren't a whole lot of resources available.
No.
And we talked about this earlier. You tend to see a lot of the same people over and over again, correct?
We do. We see a lot of the same people over and over. There's one particular gentleman that was hit by a car, and he was always charged with public intox and obstructing the free flow of traffic. And I would always tell him, I don't want to use his name, but I would say, sir, you're going to get yourself hurt because you're weaving in and out of traffic and you don't have a steady gait. He's literally unsteady. Oh, wow. And he got hit by a car in General de Gaulle and was killed.
Oh,
and it was so sad.
That's very
We
sad.
lose a lot of people when we read the news. We'll see people who are casualties of their issues, their addictions. But I just wanted to let you know that mentally ill is a whole nother story. And I'll just say briefly, obviously, when a person presents themselves to court and they clearly aren't with us, for lack of a better word, public defender will generally walk up and say, Judge, I've tried to talk to this individual. I don't know that he can help me in his defense. I'll order a psych evaluation. That person will be evaluated within 21 days by a psychiatrist, who will then give me a report that states whether they are able to assist their attorney in their own defense or not, and then list some of the illnesses that they're suffering from. I am bound to send them to University Hospital for treatment. They stay there for 72 hours and then they are released. And this is where our system, literally, they just drop off the edge.
Really?
Because that's it.
That's it. After the 72 hours, they go back out.
We lose them.
And
we don't
then-
see them again until they're charged again.
Until
they find themselves
they
in
are
trouble
charged again.
So it is a sore spot.
Yeah,
Another area that needs attention.
Yeah.
That plus funding for the courts, plus help for those with drug addiction.
Yeah, a lot of serious issues. We've learned so much today. Thank you so much for being with us, Chief Judge Desiree Charbonnet. Thank you so very much.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
That is all the time we have this week, so be sure to join us next week when we delve into another hot legal topic and cover some of the basics that you need to know to make sure your rights are protected.
Thanks to Judge Charbonnet, and thanks to all of you for continuing to support the show. Don't forget to get in touch with us by Twitter, by Facebook, and by email. And remember to check out jrpoa.com to watch whole episodes of the show and to get great legal information about all the topics discussed. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.